Good morning, welcome to the Be Better Off Show.
The Be Better Off Show.
I always say, have a great day. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Here's our little microphone, and you can be nice and comfortable.
Little intimate podcast.
A little intimate podcast studio. These chairs, Ada was with me yesterday. We bought these when we first started our first office. They're still going strong. They're very comfortable, Ada. And so there's an ode to quality. So, Rolf, where were you born and grew up, and how do you think that's influenced your life and business journey? Just a light one to warm up.
Just a light one. So I was born in Cologne in Germany, but family moved into a little village 50 kilometers off Cologne, Western Germany. So very, very humble, very unambitious environment, lots of coal mining in the area, parents, retail assistant, copper. Yeah, it was a nice upbringing. You know, I had everything I needed: house, home, food, playtime, everything healthy. But it was an environment that wasn't very kind of driven to achieve. It's kind of a bit depressing, reflecting on it overall. So I didn't know kind of what was driving me, but first I kind of was a bit stuck. But then I looked to study. I went to England to study, and then lived in Hamburg in Germany.
What did you study in England?
First in Germany I studied engineering. Quite funny today. I studied environmental technology, solar engineering, these kind of things. And then I added an energy economics degree in England on top. And that led me to Hamburg to work for PricewaterhouseCoopers in the consultancy sector for the energy industry. Now, that was in the late 90s when the industry was kind of moving from monopoly towards kind of broken up, and mentality was interesting, very slow moving, no customer orientation. So it was a slow death for me, and I kind of said, well, I didn't perform, and therefore I was also made redundant, which was great. I got a bit of money and then moved to Australia 21 years ago.
So that move,
yeah.
What was the mental process of selecting Australia? Why Australia? You were single at the time.
No, I wasn't.
No? You're married?
Not married, but...
Yeah, with your now wife?
With Andrea,
yeah. With Andrea. Yeah. So run me through that migration story.
Kind of maybe an early sign of trying to do something different. During my studies, I backpacked. I also spent 6 months here in Australia, very kind of early 90s. And then kind of liked the place. A friend was living here doing his PhD, so I visited. And then with Andrea, we came visiting. And then this kind of opportunity came up with a bit of money in our pocket, no real kind of reasons to stay. So we thought, well, why don't we, instead of just going to Australia on holidays all the time, why don't we go there and go on holidays somewhere else? And yeah, we came here for 5-6 months, kind of had a good look around, and then decided to apply for permanent residency. And for whatever reason, well, we handed in a very German application with kind of dividers and folders, and and somehow that must have caught somebody's attention, needing to reach a quota. And we got the permanent residency within 7 weeks versus 15 months or whatever was the normal then. So yeah. We stayed, decided to give it a go for...
In Sydney?
In Sydney, yeah. We went to Manly when we were staying here for the first few months. And when we had to make a decision where we wanted to live, kind of, Melbourne, Sydney, it's kind of, well...
Well, really, Manly, Melbourne, Sydney,
haven't moved
Manly.
Since. Haven't moved since.
The mayor of Manly.
So... Yeah, we just packed up, got here, and it was a whole new start. So my first job in Australia was with IKEA. They were building the Homebush-based store at the time, and I was hired to kind of set up a department within the store. And it was kind of 3 steps back if you think of Korea. But it was, for me, it was exciting. Kind of, money wasn't the key driver. It was more like coming from consultancy, where you work with people, you produce paperwork, ideas, and they never get implemented. With this one, that store opens on a day, the door go open, 30,000 people walk in, and you better be ready. So you had to physically kind of get something done. You had to build your own team, you had to train. And
what was the department?
That was in kitchen and dining.
Yeah.
Yes, and don't ask me. I still know it's a work health and safety issue. If you work too long at IKEA, you keep remembering the names. It's just horrible. But it taught me a lot about a fully integrated business model. So I went there to learn. Like, I didn't get paid well, but I went there to learn, and I learned a lot. So fully integrated business model. You design the product. You design the packaging, you look after, make sure supply chain works all the way into the store. You learn about product presentation. You learn about how do you move product when it's a bit of a slow mover. There was. I remember we had global overstocks of a specific table, and that table needed to move. So pretty much overnight, orders came, and then 250 stores at the time around the globe just shifted that table into better selling positions to just get rid of that stock. So in retail, it's fast moving. You're always on the customer. You speak with the customer every day. You can implement it. Any learnings, you can implement them the next morning or even during the day while you're speaking. So it taught me a lot, which even today I kind of draw up on when with Marley Spoon, kind of big jump when we implemented the value brand. Really strip it back to kind of what are the things that customers really need and what is part of a product versus what is kind of a benefit on top. And in order to bring the costs down, how do you talk about it? Like, there's just many things I learned through the process, especially this idea of a fully integrated business from you design the product to achieve an outcome at the very end, and you're in full control, and you can tweak the whole value chain.
So IKEA is one of the world's great businesses.
Yep. Yeah.
And so how many years did you end up there?
About 2.5 years, which was great. To make a career in IKEA, you have to be a global nomad, and you have to kind of do a couple of years in Sweden in a little village, which... Yes, pretty grey in winter, and I moved to Manly, and I didn't want to go back to Sweden. Doing a store career in itself also wasn't that appealing to me. So, decided to switch. Worked in a couple of smaller businesses as a kind of general manager, or also worked in a small consultancy for small and medium-sized businesses for a while, but. In Sydney, even then, in kind of the early 2000s, it was clear that for me as an employee, kind of it wouldn't lead to where I wanted to go. Property ownership was even then, difficult.
Especially in Manly.
Especially in Manly. And, as luck has it, I had a good friend also living in Manly. He went back to Germany for a while, but we kept in contact. And, we always had an idea of starting a business together. And then, he was in Europe working for eBay, kind of generated a lot of ideas in the 2006, 2007 years, then came back, basically locked ourselves up. We looked at 3 specific business models. And then decided to kind of launch our own business at the end of 2008, which was BrandsExclusive. Yeah.
Now, tell us, I know the BrandsExclusive story, but share that story. So you run through 3. What were the 3 options you had? How did you choose BrandsExclusive? How long did the business run? So
the 3 options, one was, can't even remember, it was very experimental, early stage, very high risk of failing. No proof anywhere in the world that this would work. So it was very early days. Kind of road to market, product market fit, like all these kind of questions were unanswered. So high risk. The other one was in a model in social gaming where Daniel established a relationship with somebody in Europe. We could have copied the platform, brought it to Australia. Legally questionable at the time, and the structures in around ownership, licensing wasn't all clear with regards to kind of what's in it for us at the end of the day. And maybe the customer acceptance wasn't predictable for me enough to invest. And then the other one was what was called Shopping Club then, still is. Some of them still exist. It was in the 2008-9, so GFC, remember anyone? So lots and lots of overstocks within retailers. So it was a platform to basically sell overstocks online to customers without taking ownership of the stock ourselves. So it was a very capital efficient business model where we would photograph the T-shirts, dresses, jeans, fashion products. We would then present it to an audience we generate. They would place the orders with us, and then we only then would buy as much as we'd sold and then ship it to the customer. So we could offer 60-70% of retail prices. The big downside then, was that the shipping times were incredibly long, because until we needed to get the order from the customer first, we would then place an order. And a lot of the wholesalers at the time didn't have good stock control, so sometimes we sold something that didn't exist or was damaged. So the actual customer experience, long wait time, anywhere between a week and 4 weeks. Unfathomable today, to then sometimes actually having the order cancelled wasn't that great. So that business model needed to evolve, but we still together grew that business in 3 years to, in its peak days, to 60 million revenue. So, but
which was about 2011.
2000. We started January 2009 in a little office, 200 square meter big. We had the first exit in 2012.
Yeah. So you sold the business to
APN, the radio network. The great idea at the time was that at the end of the day, it was about audiences that you could sell product to. So radio has an audience. We had an audience, 2 million-ish. Contacts in our database, and then with the reach of the radio as well as the billboard networks, we saw there was an opportunity to build it out. We also saw a lot of risk, hitching ourselves to a listed company, which with a board of octogenarians. So the risk panned out, and the opportunities didn't. But you learn.
Yeah, so this is like for everyone in the room. Did you sell 50% of the business?
So the financial investors. So we had venture capital investors as well as some seed angel investors. They sold out 100%, and they were very happy. So the VCs came in, and after 2.5 years, we made them 4 or 5 times the money. So it was a good deal. Daniel and I, we sold down 50% of the shares that we had in the deal, and then the idea was we should be incentivized. The problem with it was that because we weren't able to sell down 100% and implement another incentive structure, we also demanded to have a lot of control, even though 82% of the business was owned by the new owner. So we had blocking and veto rights and all these kind of things, and that I wouldn't recommend it for a buyer or a seller, because decisions are slow, and you can't go this or that way, and it just doesn't work. It's the learning here.
And so you stayed for another 2 years?
Another 2 years. Then a new CEO came into the APN group business. Their shareholders never really liked the deal, so he just decided to clear the decks, and all made sense. So no hard feelings. So he then decided, or the group decided, to sell the business on, which was also the point for Daniel and myself to kind of exit.
And who did they sell the business to?
They sold to Adam Schwab, who runs Lux Group, but he had Aussie or something.
Yeah, what was it called?
Yeah. So he had a lot of product businesses at the time. So he had the home, he had some daily deal business as well. So it kind of made sense at the time to buy this and add it into the business. But Adam then did a swap where all the product businesses were swapped into Catch, and he took on the travel businesses to build Lux Group, which is obviously amazing.
Yeah. So that's a great story. You're out by 2015?
2014.
2014. Started in 2008.
Yep.
Huge learnings. So venture capital investors, an exit to a public company, partial exit, a
bloody nose.
A bloody nose, an unhappy marriage. And I think, to just dig into the pain of, you mentioned gently, but, when you get married to somebody you're unsure of, such that you feel that you need a lot of controls in the agreement that you structured, can you share with everyone the sorts of veto rights and other controls that you had, and how that, the illusion that those provisions give you versus the practicality of having to go back and forward with an investor, with a board, even if you've got some of these rights? Especially when you've been running the business, the pair of you and Daniel.
I mean, the agreement, when decisions became, or when it became apparent that there was no fit either way, and the group wanted to get rid of it, then that gave us some financial protection, and some levers to not be totally screwed over, despite our shareholdings. And the idea was, well, 82% of our wealth is in your control, so we need to have a little bit to, counterbalance that part. The bigger problem was more that the interests weren't aligned on what this group wanted to do with the business, especially when then leadership changed.
Yeah.
So we actually wanted to decide that they give us 100% of our earnout when the CEO would leave.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of trust, but obviously that never happened. Nobody could sign up to that. But that was our thinking. That when people change,
and
the relationship changes. And
so when you sell, just to emphasise that, when you sell a business to a company that has a CEO that is an employee, that CEO or head of M&A or whoever does that
may not be there 3 months, 6 months, or a year later.
And the average tenure of a ASX-listed CEO is 3 years. The average tenure of a senior executive in many of these places is 3 years. And so that's worth knowing. If they've been in their role for 2 years, they might be there in 12 months or not.
And kind of the deal was announced, and one of the biggest shareholders kind of went apeshit. And that was a clear sign that this wouldn't be fun. And then we, obviously, 80% owner, paid a lot of money, so they wanted to help. So then Daniel and myself spent more time on dealing with help. And it was well in the beginning, in the first, it was really well intentioned, but you just lose focus on what's important. So we didn't act enough or fast enough on improving the customer value proposition, reducing lead times, taking on maybe more stock. Kind of also lost a bit of track on who we had in the business with regards to people. So it's just kind of another meeting, another hour here, another hour on top, mentally distracted. So I think that was a bigger problem. The clauses in the deal was more kind of a fallback protection. So,
So the lessons from that, if you do it again, what are you're sitting in the same place. What are the 2 or 3 things that you would change?
So kind of the idea was, how do you incentivize a founder that has kind of gotten to a bit of wealth to keep going and drive the business? Kind of that's the fundamental question that this deal tried to, or this structure tried to solve. However, how would you then go on later and value the remaining stake? Based on what formula? Like, everything can be gained. So I think that was incredibly complicated, and we spent more time trying to negotiate that, instead of saying, well, okay, why don't you sell 100%? Maybe there is a time delay until you actually get paid, but you will get paid a minimum, and then there is a performance bonus at the end that is kind of a shadow equity type level, maybe. So I think there's other means that work to incentivize people, which doesn't lead to the frustration of, well, you didn't deliver on your bargain, therefore my wealth decreased. So that's obviously a problem. So and it didn't work for them because they couldn't fire us. And they should have, because then they could have dealt with the sale differently, or they could have repositioned the brand or whatever. But
So sell 100%?
Definitely. Of course you need to find a structure, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't do 80, 82, 18, so Daniel 9, me 9. So
Yeah. So you come out of that experience. So I had been down to BrandsExclusive. I'd seen the photography. I'd seen the stock. I was very familiar with what was happening, which was, again, a huge privilege to see, the game being played in real time. You go from that. What's the physical, emotional, and then process? Then what happens next?
So this final.
'Cause this is bruising, right? Like
The final selling process was bruising. I'm reasonably calm. This is me happy. This is me angry. It's not a lot.
It's a German thing.
Not a lot of modulation here. So an ex-employee actually took a video doing exactly that. But anyway. But I was tiger in cage in the last few weeks while that deal was being finalized. So, somewhat unfair on the family. So we decided to do something we'd remember no matter what.
Yeah.
After the deal. So deal finished in February, March. So we went as a family to New Zealand for 3 months over winter to just go skiing.
How old were the kids at this point?
3 and 6.
Yeah.
So just old enough to get on the skis with Anna, which was great. And then having permanent residency here, citizenship even, you have permanent residency over there. So it's great. Free childcare.
Yeah.
Free. Anna was a private one, so we went there. This is a private, so you have to pay a little bit. Is $14 a day okay? Anyway, I digress. So we went there, spent 3 months in New Zealand in Arrow Time, beautiful place. I went up the mountain pretty much every day. Still can't ski, but it doesn't matter. Kids went to school there. Great memories built, and a bit of really letting some steam off for a longer time and thinking what did I learn, what do I like about myself, what do I like doing, and these kind of things. But I also was a bit, to be honest, a bit directionless, what's next. That wasn't clear to me either. But we, with a network of friends, we started looking around on, what are some...
So when you were in New Zealand?
While I was in New Zealand, yeah. So what are some of the global business models that may or may not work in Australia, which is a bit of a story. Look around, see what works overseas. Is it here? Is it not here? Does it make sense? Some of the learnings I had is that Australian consumers are much more advanced than people think in terms of what their adoption cycle is. So even in the Facebook adoption, one of the highest when it came. Mobile phone adoption, even in the 90s, was one of the fastest, highest per capita. And when we started in 2008-9 in fashion after the big .com crash, how could you sell a shoe online? It doesn't work. Well, people were buying overseas under $1,000 to ship it in. So that's why looking around what's happening overseas is something that made sense to me.
So the journey from that, bloody nose exercise, tremendous idea to take the family away and try and give the family a memory that isn't the stress of that exercise. You come back, the genesis of Marley Spoon, and maybe share with everyone, where did the idea come from and what is the business?
Yeah. So despite all my whinge and bloody nose, I still could buy the house, and that gave us a sense of security. There's a bit of money in the bank, there's the house, that's done, right? So it's paid off, breathe, nothing can take that away. So that then changes what you want to achieve in your next venture. The first venture was with Daniel, and we did a lot of work up front to align on, do we really want the same thing out of this if we want to work together? With friends, you may know your friend, you think you know your friend, but is it, when you do a venture together, do you really want the same thing? So we actually had somebody working with us as a facilitator, just make sure. And the idea was we build it, we sell it, we make money. We didn't want to build a legacies, we didn't have our name on it. And, so, that was kind of a bit of a tick, which then with some of the kind of financial goals that I had, not solved, but, ticked off in some parts, gave me a bit more freedom to kind of look for a bit more than making money. So I wanted to continue to grow and learn. I learned a lot as a consultant. I learned a lot at IKEA. I learned a lot at building BrandsExclusive. I like kind of being challenged and growing and doing things I hadn't done before. So my career is incredibly kind of unlinear. Entering a new industry is something that was appealing to me. So I wanted to also apply what I learned, because things get easier when you get older and have a bit of experience. You don't make that mistake a third time. So that was important to me. So how can I provide value to what I'm doing? I wanted to kind of, I got a bit older, Maslow pyramid, kind of the bottom two rungs were solved. I wanted to a bit more, like the product I was selling or the service I was giving needed to solve a problem for somebody and make their life better. So that was becoming important then. And then, I wanted to make some money still. So,
Still a capitalist.
Still.
It's a rare breed these days, my friend. It works.
So the through BrandsExclusive, the venture capital fund, Klaus Hommel's Lakestar in Europe, they in 2014 invested in Marley Spoon in Europe, and so Marley Spoon meal kit business. They looked at the map where their biggest competitor was HelloFresh. HelloFresh was in Australia. Klaus told the CEO, Fabian, I know a guy or I know a couple of guys. Maybe they can help making introductions or build the team. So that was how contact was made to a super small fledgling startup in Berlin called Marley Spoon that had big ambitions to conquer the world with a better food solution.
So just so that everyone heard that, so Klaus, his fund was an investor in BrandsExclusive.
Yep.
You've stayed in touch with him. He's had a good experience. He got 4 or 5 times his money. He's now invested in a startup in Germany. He says to those boys, talk to these 2 boys I know in Australia. I think that's,
talking about seeds.
Yeah. I think this is a very important thing. People look at the business today. Now, just before we move through that bit, the business today, the revenues are
200+ million.
200 million, market cap.
Forget it, useless.
Some hundreds, but it's been as high as.
It's been as high as 800 million.
So it's been as high as 800. So it's publicly listed. It's been as high as 800 million. It's got over 200 million of sales. So this is a significant business in a part of the market. People have got less time to cook than ever, and probably less skills. They want things easy, sent to them, that's healthy and makes a difference. So this is a very long-term, well-positioned business, but it really the opportunity came through a relationship that was probably at this point over 10 years old. So what happens next? They come to you.
The idea was that Danny and myself helped building the team, but I talked about kind of what I was looking for in my next gig. I didn't have something properly lined up. I dabbled in founding other businesses, but I didn't have kind of my own.
Is there a pet business?
Yeah, we together with a couple of friends, we were founding shareholders of Mad Paws, which is now listed as well. A marketplace for pet boarding, pet sitting services. That was interesting, but that was not something I wanted to run. We funded it, we were advisors, and kind of helped that business along. We found a CEO, a junior CEO to run it, and then we helped him along. Nice side gig, but not the main one. So I still had my lookout. Then this opportunity came, and I looked at it and it's like, okay, I can bring something from my scaling scaling a business. I can learn something. I didn't know food, didn't know perishable, didn't know refrigerated. The business or the product is something that really helps people to live a better, healthier life. And when you look at it at scale in a country that is, on the verge of an obesity crisis, if you can support people to live better and eat better, then kind of there is lever to actually do something. And the other side of the do well part is that through our supply chain and our business model, despite shipping food, we have less than 1% of food waste in our supply chain, and our customers that usually waste about $1,000 on average in their fridges go to maybe 50. So, tremendous impact also on the environment, if you like. So it ticked all the boxes. So I kind of was reluctant to find somebody. And together with Fabian, the global CEO, decided that I'd be the one to run it.
Yeah. And what year did that end up in?
So 2015, so in early 2015, I flew to Berlin, spent some time with the founders and the team over there, decided that kind of they're ambitious enough that I liked to be part of it in the initial stages. We put the early team together, 4 or 5 people here in April. We shipped the first box in June 15, and I think officially became CEO in early 16, but it happened before.
How many packages are you shipping per day now?
So we're shipping around 45 boxes or 45,000 orders a week, which have roughly 4 meals at 3. We ship 200 million or 2 million times 10, 20 million meals a year.
Yeah. Now, in the first year in 16, how many meals were shipped approximately?
In 15, 5,000 orders.
So, guys, compounding from 5,000 to 20 million is pretty.
We went hard. We had. Every startup has insane growth rates. You ship 1 box, next week you ship 2. It's kind of, hooray, 100% growth. But we went kind of several hundreds. We stagnated. So a peak period was obviously during COVID. No questions why. People stuck at home. We doing online food, of course. We were a go-to place to help customers live, and it was an interesting time with the team. It was very hard in our facilities, operating in some illusion of COVID safe. We did our best to serve. We grew 40-50% in 3.5-4 weeks. When in end of March 2020 all hell broke loose. So that was pretty crazy. Shifting supply chains, everything moved online. You needed to get the product in the door. We needed to get people in the door and train them. We needed to organize pick and pack in safe, 1.5 meters apart in a facility that was cramped. So very, very challenging, but positively challenging, because on the flip side, I was still involved with MedPause. 100% of their revenue broke away. So, I saw two sides of the COVID coin, which was interesting. On one hand, 50% people on salary reduced. On the other hand, we were scrambling to get staff into the door one way or the other, safe enough to operate. But very, very interesting. And that was our peak time, where we were shipping 65,000 orders, nearly 70 a week.
How big is the facility now, the warehouse? And is it all now automated? We
started in a place not much bigger than this, maybe even smaller. And we have now 3 meal kit facilities, Sydney, Melbourne, Perth, combined footprint of 20-something thousand square meters that we occupy. And in 2022, we purchased a ready-to-heat meal business, which has its own 2,500 square meter kitchen cooking facility as well.
And what's that business called?
So that business is called Chef Good. So Marley Spoon developed from a one-brand business that served had 7 different options to eat for only couples in 2015 to now we have Marley Spoon, which roughly 130, 140 meals to choose from, plus another 200 what we call add-on items, which are either sides or ready-to-heat meals or retail-ready packaged goods, snacks, drinks, these kind of things. Then we have a value brand called Dinnerly. So the easiest way is kind of Jetstar, Qantas, kind of Jetstar in their good times, and then right. So we have a premium and we have a value product on the meal kit end, and then we have the ready-to-eat business, Chef Good. Yeah. So the idea is that the value proposition evolves. We started off with kind of helping people to cook. But we're now, to really simplify it, we bring healthy, delightful, and easy meal solutions to every Aussie, and we do that as a group. And we went away from kind of help people cooking to help people eat well. And that can be done within 2 minutes. Prepared food in the microwave, all the way to slow cooking meals that take hours and hours, because we didn't want to dictate how you live your life or how busy you are this week versus next week. Tremendous opportunity to move for us from serving 2 to 3 cooked dinners a week to now serve anywhere between 20 to 30 eating occasions in a week. From breakfast, lunch, dinner, 7 days a week.
So we'll have one of the sessions we'll have during this event. Paul Griffiths, a friend of mine's a managing director at Jefferies, an investment bank. He's going to talk about financing businesses and growth. You've now financed business through venture capitalists, through growth funds. Can you share with everyone here how you funded the growth of Marley Spoon, the journey to a public company, and what you've learned from your VCs, your growth funds, your public company shareholder, your pre-IPO and your IPO type journey?
So just for clarity, I don't want to kind of have false pretenses. I run the Australian Marley Spoon business or group. The global Marley Spoon group was listed on the ASX. And I worked with Fabian, the global CEO, on kind of making that happen. The Australian business, through industry settings and bit good fortune and a good team, was and potentially still is the kind of jewel in the crown. We had 40% of the group revenue at the time, and we were the most profitable at the time. So that was one of the reasons why we listed the global group in Australia. So, Fabian was the one generally kind of raising funds for Marley Spoon as such. There are very big differences. VCs, with all their faults, they have kind of still a longer term view, and they want businesses to succeed. They're not in and out. They're not in there to, you have some long-term shareholders also in a listed business, but you also have a lot of opportunity seekers that kind of, go in and out when they see whatever opportunity that may be, totally dislodged from your actual performance. And market sentiments are moving because interest rate change, not because fundamentals change. So that's a big difference in terms of before and after, if you like. So you have to keep that in mind if you are thinking of doing an IPO. I actually worked with the boys from, not worked with them, but spent a bit of time with them from Bikes Online. When they were, during the peak e-commerce times, kind of considering an IPO. And just explain kind of what would happen and how much time you spend on working with investors and doing your roadshows and kind of justifying why things are going one way or another versus kind of just doing what you need to do and being in control. So and they did not do it. So it really depends on what you are trying to do and what your obligations are to your investors, to your team members, your shareholders, stakeholders, and so forth.
So as you're doing all of that, you're married to Andrea, you've got 2 kids. How do you run your life in a sustainable and happy way while you're doing these other things? Because the impact of, I remember seeing Andrea at a function we were at when she was pregnant with your second child, walking up a hill, and you know that this is going on at the same time as, these other things, particularly when things are complex. How have you tried to manage life in an integrated way or not?
So I was at the time member of YPO, Sean's here, a few others maybe, and so having a group of like-minded, and this will happen here, I suppose, which is your goal, like-minded people that understand what you're going through, so you can kind of talk to them about the problems in a confidential way. You can trust your team members in forum, so a group of 8, 9, 10 kind of people that can advise. They have a stake in your life. They're kind of your personal board. They really want to help you with good intentions, but they're also not. They also tell you the truth. So that was important to have a place to vent, seek advice, kind of let steam off, and kind of have certain problems or ideas, good and bad, you can share, and so that really helped and is important. Andrea has been super supportive, kind of all my kind of journey. So we had Max being not even a year old, crawling on the floor. We didn't have a lot of money when we started BrandsExclusive, and she said, "No, go for it," right? She also said, you have until January because then money's out. So
go for it until January.
If you're not funded by then you may have to find a job. But still, there was a joint understanding of the level of risk we wanted to take as a couple, as a family. In pursuing opportunities, and that hasn't necessarily changed. So that's been really, really supported. In terms of how I sustain, I had my ups and downs, but it's pretty clear. You need to kind of moderate your alcohol intake. Well, I need to anyway. I need to kind of, regular exercise a couple of times a week. Eat reasonably well. And that is kind of the foundation. And if I do that 3-4 times a week, half an hour gym-ish, rowing, whatever, kind of, 1 glass, 2 glass wine a week, maybe, then all is good.
Yeah. Kids are now, how old are the kids now?
Max is 16, so which is awesome. He's on his L plates. Anna is 13. It'll be interesting the next couple of years. She's showing the typical signs of a girl. But they're blessed, smart, healthy, and staying out of trouble so far. So fingers crossed. Really, really easygoing, to be honest.
So the people that have inspired you the most, helped you the most, or been the best example to you, are there any sort of North Star people like your VC friend or others that have really, contributed to what you've been able to do? Not kind of one person. It's probably more picking the best off. So I am an avid podcast listener. I don't read as much as you do, but I do read the book or audiobook in the car, which is kind of the best invention ever. So good. Driving becomes bearable. So, so I try to pick up things I learn along the way and then implement them, which is kind of what you mentioned. That my team's dreading. It's kind of fuck. He read another book, but so. I pick ideas that I think have value or apply, and it could be like listen to the Musk biography. So there's a lot of intensity which I can learn from,
I don't have to pick up the bad ideas or go to the extremes, but there's stuff you can do. It's just one recent example where it's kind of, okay, we can pick it up a bit more. We can kind of be a bit more increase the urgency. And using the COVID example, when our business is capable of overnight. So we had COVID in Melbourne. We needed to shut the facility. 40% of our revenue pumping out of Melbourne. The Department of Health walked in and said, well, 100% of your people are now close contact, so, they're home. I don't care what you do here. I don't care how you feed, Victorians. Facility shut. Overnight, all trucks to Sydney. We served 96% of our customers. So you can use this example to go back to the business. Well, if we can do that overnight, we can do much more than we currently think we're capable of. If you can grow your business and operate your business and grow it 40% in 2 to 3 weeks, this is a project to do in 3 months. Let's go. Plenty of time.
Yeah, the capacity of people under pressure is something else.
So, I pick stuff from people, books, the big luminaries in startup land or business land, to even other smaller people, unknown people that are kind of walk on the streets. People in the forum. Plenty of lessons I learned from them.
Yeah. Well, I hope that's been interesting for people. I know we've got time limits, and I'm hoping that I'll stay within them, but we all have hopes, dreams and aspirations, so we'll see.
Well, you have a packed agenda.
Yeah, we've got now we have Slido working. This will be the first time we've tried to use it. Gary, I'm not sure, or Kun, how you want to show us those questions. I can maybe see them on there. You can pop it on your QR code. Have we got any questions in there? Kun, at the moment, no questions. All right, well then we'll do it the old-fashioned way. If anyone's got a question for Rolf right now, then now's your opportunity, and I'm sure that there is a roving mic that I can sort of throw at you, and if you can catch her, okay.
How did you overcome the supply chains through that time? That would have been extremely stressful.
I think, so for us, talking about seeds, we always try to work with our suppliers in a very respectful way along the way. So there's a lot of give and take. You don't blow up when there is a little human mistake happening and become a jerk. And they're both... you build relationships, and then when you need them, you can rely on them, and that worked for us. But it was a very hard work on the phone constantly. The food supply chain shifted radically, so from hospitality and cafes and everything needed to go into wholesale supermarkets, and us and as well as others that were doing food online. So it was a lot of being on the phone, trying to get tins of tomatoes and all these kind of things that kind of led to fisty fights on the supermarket shelves. But yeah, relationships that you kind of build and foster over a long time. That doesn't mean you're soft with your suppliers, but respectful. And then on the other hand, you can rely on them as well.
Question?
Thank you, Rolf. In 2015, when you actually started this, how many other players were in the market, and how many more players have entered the market since? And how do you see this category now in the next, 5 to 7 years?
Yeah. So HelloFresh had probably the biggest head start. They were here three years-ish earlier, and then there were 2 or 3 other smaller players, including MyFoodBag, who are now listed in the New Zealand Stock Exchange. So they started that business in New Zealand also 3-4 years earlier, and then came to Australia to launch it here. So there's 3-4 players in the market. We had it looked like insignificant difference, but it was quite a significant difference. So at that time, when you were buying meal kits, the meals for any given week were actually decided for you. So you get what you get, and you don't get upset. And we were the first one who introduced choice. And it was very limited. The average order was 3 or 4 meals a week, still is. And we had 7 meals to choose from, 2 vegetarian and kind of a couple of protein options. So at least you could kind of vote off the ones you didn't like. And but with most of our competitors, there is pork in there, so you already exclude 20% of potential customers, if not more, in that week. So a customer gets something they don't eat, that drives churn. So we had that advantage, and then we also packed the meals into individual dish bags. Some of them were doing it, but the biggest competitor, HelloFresh, wasn't doing that at that time. So that also gave us a leg up. So we went out with the better box as the difference, and it was for sure. Yeah. So in terms of how the industry is developing, so I kind of hinted to it. We were pretty narrow in our approach. So you needed to want a subscription, and you needed to want to cook in order to be a customer of Marley Spoon. Now that is changing. And we did that in order to ensure we have a cost advantage, because it was a subscription, and we asked our customers to make the decision 6 days before delivery. We had this no waste supply chain because we only, very working capital efficient. We only bought the stuff after the orders were placed. 30, 40 days payment terms, 6 days in advance. So, that helps building a business. And keeping waste low because of our small volumes at the time. If you get your ordering wrong, then
Got a big problem.
Big problem.
And you'd learned a ton about inventory through IKEA and through BrandsExclusive.
Yeah. So that really helped. Now that we have 200 million in revenue, still not big, in terms of a Woolies, Coles, even Harris, if you like. But it's big enough to move into a rolling kind of stocks, and therefore the waste problem we can manage in different ways now to open up to faster delivery times. We are working through the ideas of not being a subscription-only business, also being a one-off order business as well. So I personally see a huge opportunity there. So that's one, change the business model on the back of the volume that we've achieved. And then the other one is broadening the offer. As I mentioned, we used to serve only 3 eating occasions at best, maybe 4 on our value product, also 5 times a week. But there's so much more we can do, help people eat better. Yeah.
Very, very interesting. Question there.
Rolf, I assume that maybe if not, through your growth years, did you experience much senior manager or leadership turnover? And if not, how did you hire leaders and senior managers for growth in future years?
So we haven't seen a lot of turnover in our leaders. So when we were small, we actually kind of a very small team with generalists very early on in their career. So our head of people started as an administrator in the fulfillment section, helping with ordering, helping with kind of training new team members and so forth. And then, very, very early on in her career, had an interest in people and HR, and then we worked together to get her where she's today, a tremendous leader. Our head of finance and now dual role, also COO, was in Berlin, started as an intern in finance, did our FP&A, and tremendous work ethic. He's a beast. And very, very literate, hardworking, smart, and has started as an intern in finance to now run a 200 million business, finance department and operations. But I also hired some of my old salts from the BrandsExclusive business that I could trust on the operational side, still with us. So how do you hold on to them? Like I am very high level, stay out of your way kind of leader. So my team has a lot of freedom to do what they need to do, which is very appealing to a lot of people. That, like in my view, I hire somebody to do a job, so why would I do their job? So it's more about setting direction, setting goals, having strategic views, strategic discussions, and then, all things going well, stay out of the day work, so I can concentrate more on the higher level framework setting rather than being in the business. So sometimes I wonder if I'm the laziest person in the business. Physically, I may be. Mentally, probably not. But kind of looks a bit like that sometimes. That is appealing to a lot of people to stick around. And then, we are in a very blessed industry and business, because we get feedback from our customers how we fundamentally change their lives for the better. And again, when you have that purpose, that brings a lot of people in and they want to contribute to that.
From the Slido.
Yeah.
From the Slido, you mentioned coming into an industry you didn't have experience in being of interest to you. With your background, do you think learning a new industry allows for fresh eyes to see out of the box and drive growth? If so, what was one thing you identified which was your light bulb moment?
There is a good level of naivety. So when you come into an industry, you don't know all the pitfalls and all the challenges. So like refrigerated supply chain, how hard can it be?
Yeah.
Horrible. Fresh produce waste, I had an inkling that it could be a bit of a challenge, but the day-to-day management of it, I had no idea. So you go in with a bit of naivety, but and you probably hear that all the time. That allows, I would have never started if I would have known. It's kind of one of the things. But at the end of the day, you also hire experts on the way, and then you can have that kind of yin and yang they bring ideas on what works and what doesn't, and then you can challenge or learn with fresh eyes or learn, and that is a very healthy thing. So we hired of course a culinary expert, a person who wrote recipe books to set us up with our recipes to start off on. And she had a lot of ideas on how images need to be produced, but she came from recipe books, not from internet. With BrandsExclusive, we produced 15,000 products a month, which means model comes in, throw on clothes, get her to turn 5 times or him, and then that product is shot within a minute, and then next. So it's kind of go. So I brought that to production of food, because our meals were up, maximum a week, images that size. It wasn't a book that stays on the shelf forever. You didn't need to produce it. And she came in, a photographer will be $2,000 a day. It's like, no, it won't. It will be 500. It will be a normal day rate. They're not superstars. If they don't want to do it, I'll pick one from the street who can operate an iPhone. That's how we work. So you kind of, and it wasn't 500, it was 750. We needed a bit more quality than I thought, but you come from different angles to kind of then find what you need for your particular business in an industry that's also different. So we operated in delivering a meal solution. We didn't sell ingredients, so it's obviously very different on what you do. We need to produce recipe cards versus selling fresh tomatoes or chips. So being open-minded, but also then kind of try things that are different to stand out. There was a light bulb moment. Let me think about it. I may come back to it. Yeah.
So the question, that there's some great questions here. So most people start a business with their own capital or debt. What gave you the confidence, at such a young age to raise capital for BrandsExclusive?
So with BrandsExclusive, it was so Daniel and I were aligned in what we wanted to do, but very complementary in our skills. So when he then looked at, okay, this is the business we want to kind of start together, and what are the key elements? So on one hand, we needed to acquire customers online, performance marketing, and that's where Daniel came in, build website, produce products. And then we need to kind of, build a supply chain and ship products, and that's where I came in from with my IKEA experience. So we felt that we had the skills to drive the business, and that then gives you the confidence when you speak with your suppliers on one hand that need to trust you with their brand, or with financial investors.
And it's still, the confidence is, looking back, looks like people are confident, but you've asked the question, and if you couldn't have got the funding, you wouldn't have been able to do it. So
sure,
but the funding gives you some confidence.
The investors, on the other hand, they also, when they invest in startups, they have a high risk mentality and tolerance. There is a high likelihood of failure in that setting. So. They look at the founder, they look at the experience they bring, the networks they can tap into in order to support the growth, and that seemed to work. But we raised that money in Europe because in Australia that was not possible in the GFC.
Yeah. So that's also very interesting in terms of that European connection. Where did that come from initially?
That was Daniel having worked at eBay in Berlin. That's where the European connection came from.
Which is great. So again, a long-standing relationship. Books that you've learned the most from?
Books I learned the most from. So it's autobiographies, Steve Jobs, Musk, these kind of things.
Thank you for sharing your story. What is the culture like at Marley Spoon? Is it a family culture, or are you a sports team?
Netflix, No Rules. It's a book I cherished. They obviously talk about sports teams, and I try to move the business there as much as I can. But on the other hand, we have, very long tenure for a lot of people, so that then breeds familiarity, and that's also very helpful. Yeah. So probably more in the middle, but we run, half-yearly calibration meetings where we, use the keeper test. So that's something I took out of the books, kind of that question. If that person would leave tomorrow, would you cry river or not? And if you don't, why is that? And, is it because they do a good job for us and you can replace the role? And there's plenty of candidate, and therefore you're not worried that person leaving this role, even though the person does a good job, and then we can look at kind of, what do we do here? Or is it behaviorally a bit more disruptive? You just haven't had the guts to kind of take action. Or, it's tremendous, but then you also need to look at, well, if that person is such a key talent or future star, are we doing enough in order to keep that person from moving on? So like that is one of the most important meetings that we run, where we sit as a group, and then... Is
that the senior executive team?
Senior executive team, they before that go through, with their kind of, second leaders, go through their teams, and we look at probably not every pick and pack person in the facility, of course, but, we're 100-something salaried people, and we go through 90 of them. And the team, then the executive team holds each other to account where, then, he's a really good performer, great future, and then some others goes like, nah. Nah, I've heard many different stories. There's a few issues here. So this is where you flush out, bring out into the open, great performance and underperformance, and then sit down, write down the actions, and within 3 months that's fixed one way or the other.
So twice a year, and then sort it out within 12 weeks. It's a really great insight. So all businesses are relatively working capital light. How much thought went into deciding on the business models you went into?
Yeah, so that's when you need to raise money to start the business, obviously working capital, like how much do you need to raise to fund the operations of the business versus the kind of the day-to-day versus the growth, customer acquisition, and so forth. Big consideration for BrandsExclusive not having inventory, having worked in an inventory business and seeing the millions on the shelves and having to deal with that kitchen table overstock. But that was a huge consideration to look into.
It's good to see somebody who's really amazing at doing that, so that you know that you're not. Because IKEA are unbelievably good at managing.
Yeah. So that's obviously owning the supply chain and knowing. We actually, I think it's called the beer game. So that's part of the training processes within IKEA. So they, even if you're in retail at the end of it, you're still trained in understanding supply chain. Yeah. And very, very important. So kind of at the end of the day. Imagine the P&L of the business that you want to build and look at the key lines. Imagine the balance sheet, look at the key lines, and then see what you can do to optimize upfront.
Yeah, that's great. Fast forward 5 years, what are you most excited about from a technological perspective that will evolve in your business?
Humanoid robots.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk robots. So, people hear Elon Musk talk about his robots.
Yeah, and there's Figure, and there's a bunch of others.
Yeah, and he's showing his robots, and I think people think that robots are this mythical thing that's a long way away. The Japanese are using them.
So there's two types. There's the cobots, static ones, the robots you see on car production lines and so forth, and I'm no expert whatsoever, preface, they're programmed to repeat the same movement over and over and over again. Yep. Huge upfront capital, but high repetition on the same work. What is coming is these human-like machines that learn that you can actually sit next to and can train in hundreds and thousands of different movements and different gigs. So what is important to me as we've been kind of building our facilities is our business model continues to change. So if I plonk millions and millions of dollars into conveyor belts and hard as in hard to move automation, we know we will be hampered in how we innovate. So humans are extraordinary in adapting to a new process. So that's why I'm so excited about these humanoids, because I can change things, and they're predicted to be costing around $25,000 to $50,000. So that's a year worth of, and awards wage. And obviously they work 20 hours a day, 4 hours charging. But the idea is that you can be super adaptable as your business model evolves while still being super automated. And you can step by step introduce that automation into an existing process rather than having to rip everything out and become static. So I visited in Europe a facility also for meal kits, a company called Gusto doing 400 million there. I visited one of their fully automated sites doing kind of 2-3x of what we do in Sydney, and they plonked 50 million pounds into it, and great, but unchangeable.
Great.
And the cost of capital today versus the cost of labor versus the ability to change things, I didn't think that makes a lot of sense, but these humanoid robots, I can't wait.
There are self-driving cars on the streets in the US. There's real progress in the humanoid space, which is really amazing. So, last couple of questions. On a day-to-day basis, how do you set your priorities and what makes a good day?
So a good day makes all boxes go out and high scores in willingness to repurchase and NPS, and low numbers of customer complaints. Our supply chain food super complex. A wilted salad leaf, that leads to a complaint. So it's very different in terms of complaint numbers to kind of finished carton goods. That'd be significantly less. But that makes a good day. A good day makes when you have a great conversation with one of your team members, and they go away energized on knowing what they want to do and how they can contribute, and seeing kind of a great next couple of months or weeks with Marley Spoon to kind of drive growth. And then you look at them and they're turning the dial. So that's another kind of great day for me. In terms of, what was the rest of the question? That's a great
just
day.
setting priorities and
setting priorities. For me, the position for me is kind of, how do I translate 18-month, 24-month into today, and then have these discussions with the team. So if we want to be a meal solutions business that helps our customers to live a healthy life and deliver those products in a delightful way and make it really easy, what does that look like, and what do I need to start today? Be it a change in our digital products, which we need to discuss with our global partners. What do I need to do in terms of sourcing decisions today? What's a delightful ingredient? How do we change the range? And like all these kind of things. So it's this working backwards. Another book. It's actually called Working Backwards. So that's how I operate. Trying to envision not 5 years away, but 1.5, 2 years away, because it's a bit more. It's clearer and it's fast changing. I think 5 years is good, but it doesn't drive decisions today as much as 2 years. And then, look at the actions that we need to kind of have implemented 3 months, 6 months away.
On behalf of everybody, I'd like to thank Rolf for his time today. I hope everyone has found that interesting and useful. We're going to have morning tea now, and hopefully there'll be time for you to ask any question that I haven't been able to get to. Rolf, thanks again for sharing some time with us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks.
Good man.